Hi, everybody. I'm going to continue some read aloud that we started before spring break. We were in the middle or at the end of chapter 7 in our book Hero, and I didn't want to just abandon it because I want to finish it too. So this will give you just some little relaxing time throughout your day too. I'm going to review just a little bit of chapter 7. Ben, our main character, was supposed to be working, and he got sort of distracted by Hero, the dog, was practicing some commands, and then, got a little bit distracted with the new puppy Scout, too. So his dad's kind of taking him to task for that. And remember, one of the things he has to do is prove that he can manage his homework and his job and baseball along with taking care of Hero and Scout in order to be able to keep the dogs. So I'm just going to read a little bit of that, review from chapter 7, and then I'll read chapter 8. Okay? I'll start with this one. Ben felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Something wasn't right. It was like Scout had two parts to his personality. He was smart and sweet, but he was also incredibly skittish. If Ben couldn't fix Scout's anxiety problems, there was no way the pup could ever stay with his family. His parents would never allow it. Ben, I've seen what happens to these fighting dogs, and trust me, I can't unsee it, his dad said gently. It's horrible. If Scout is going to get past what happened to him, he'll need someone to spend a lot of time with him, more time than you have on your hands. Frustration rose in Ben's chest. There was no way his dad was taking away Scout. Ben couldn't find the words to explain to his dad how he felt about both of the dogs. He couldn't imagine life without Hero. It was almost like he was a part of Ben. And Scout, well, he was just so tiny and young, and he needed Ben and Hero. Even in the few days since they'd found him, Ben felt like Scout had already come to rely on him. He couldn't just abandon him. The only way to convince his dad, though, would be to prove him wrong. And that's just what Ben planned to do. I just, please, Dad. Ben's dad studied his son's face. He shook his head and looked away. Ben bit his lip to stop himself from begging. Finally, his dad spoke. You're putting me in a tough spot here, Ben. I can see how much Scout means to you, but I can also tell that he's maybe not the best thing for you. He sighed. One more chance. Please don't make me regret it. Chapter 8. Ben, your next assignment is to interview our new student. Uh, Ms. Malik consulted an official looking piece of paper on her desk. Jack Murphy. What? No, Ben called out before he could stop himself. I mean, can't someone else do that? He looked around the school newspaper office. All the other kids stared at their computer screens or conveniently seemed to be looking for something very important at the bottom of their backpacks. You're it, Ms. Malik said firmly. I'll need 500 words on where he came from, what he likes to do in his spare time, sports, family. You know the drill. Let's get to know him. Yes, Ms. Malik. Ugh. He'll be here any minute. Double ugh. Not only did Ben have to spend the rest of the period talking to Jack, of all people, but he'd hoped to spend some of the newspaper club getting a head start on his homework. He was heading over to the police station after school. He wanted to take Hero back to say hello to everyone, and Ben was hoping to meet one of the canine officers his dad had been telling him about, Officer Perillo. He was hoping she might be able to give him some advice on helping Scout get over his nerves. For a second, Ben entertained the possibility of faking a sudden onset stomach ache before Jack got there, but he knew he'd never get away with it. Oh, great, Ben said to Ms. Malik, faking enthusiasm. A few minutes later, Ben sat face to face with the kid who had tried to crack his skull open with a vase ball. Jack looked about as happy to be there as Ben. So, you moved here from Jackson how long ago? Ben asked. 3 months, Jack said, fiddling with the Mississippi State University Bulldog keychain that hung off his backpack. And did you play any sports back in Jackson? Ben already knew the answer, but he had to ask the question. Baseball, Jack said quietly. He sure wasn't making this interview any easier for either one of them. Were you on the varsity team? Ben asked, trying to sound like a real reporter and pull out the interesting details of Jack's life. Yep. What position did you play? Ben tried again. Shortstop. Ben's stomach tightened. It was true then. Jack was going to be his competition for the spot. And, how did your team do? Ben asked nervously. Jack's face lit up. You don't know? Nope. Sorry, Ben said. We swept the state, man. Jack grinned. Number one, 3 years in a row. Way better than your team did, that's for sure. 3 years. Wow, Ben said through gritted teeth, trying hard to ignore the rest of the comment. When my mom said we were moving here, the first thing I did was look up your team, Jack said, to make sure you're not terrible. Turns out you're not, which is nice. Ben tightened his grip on his pen. Glad you approve. Your team isn't up to the same level I'm used to, Jack said, but that could change. Tryouts are in 2 days. As if Ben needed a reminder. I heard you play shortstop too. Jack looked Ben up and down as he spoke. He couldn't tell if Jack was messing with him or not. Either way, it was getting to him. Ben could feel his blood starting to boil. Breathe, he heard his dad's voice say. Act with purpose. Ben inhaled, exhaled. He just needed to get the assignment done. That's right, I do, Ben replied as neutrally as he could. So, he said, changing the subject, what was it that brought you and your family to Gulfport in the middle of the semester? Ben saw a flicker of something. Was it sadness? Crossed Jack's face. When he spoke again, he sounded a little less confident. It's not my whole family, Jack said. It's just me and my mom. He looked around the room. My parents are getting divorced. My mom got a new job here, so we moved. Oh, sorry, Ben said. I didn't mean to. It's cool, Jack said with a shrug. I guess I'll see my dad every few months or something like that. From what Ben could tell, there was nothing about the situation that could be defined as cool. It had to be hard living in a new town and not seeing your dad for months at a time. Ben couldn't believe it, but he actually felt bad for Jack. He was fumbling for what to say next when someone tapped him on the shoulder. Noah had come into the room. What's going on, gentlemen? He asked, looking from Ben to Jack and back again. His eyebrows were raised in surprise. Hey, Noah, Ben said. He shot his friend a look that said, Don't ask. I just came to figure out the plan for Friday night, Noah said. Friday night? It sounded vaguely familiar, but Ben couldn't put his finger on what he was talking about. He was aware of Jack listening to their conversation. My mom's surprise birthday party? Am I going to need to remind you again, or can you hang on to this information for 3 days? I'll remember, Ben said. Noah looked unconvinced. You have to let everyone into my house while we take her out for dinner. Right. Dude, if you're not there on time, the whole surprise will be ruined. My dad and I are counting on you. Gotcha. He gestured with his head toward Jack. I'm almost done here if you want to wait for me. Noah checked the time on his phone. Can't. Gotta run to study group. Bye. Bye, Jack. Jack nodded at him. Noah pinned his gaze on Ben again. Friday, he said. Friday, Ben repeated. I'll be there. You'd better be, or a jittery dog will be the least of your problems. That's the end of chapter 8. In the next couple of days, I'll post chapter 9 so we can keep up on our read aloud. I hope you enjoyed it today. You can also look for Hero on any of the apps that Ms. Davis is talking about in her 100 book class. But for now, I'll say that's the end of today's read aloud. Thanks for watching.